Have you ever felt like there's a part of you working against your own goals? A hidden force that seems to apply the brakes, right when you're on the verge of a breakthrough. You know, that no matter how much you achieve, how many accolades you collect, a persistent inner voice whispers that you aren't good enough, that you're just a fraud, and that any moment now you'll be discovered. You're not alone. It's not just in your head. This experience is so common, so fundamentally human, that psychologists have studied it for decades. But what if this voice isn't just a simple lack of confidence, or a bout of low self-esteem? What if it's a carefully crafted message from a hidden, disowned part of your own mind? The brilliant Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung had a name for this hidden part: the shadow self. He believed it operates from the depths of our unconscious, a vast, unseen territory of the psyche. And its greatest weapon, the tool it uses to keep us from stepping into our true potential, is self-doubt. But why does this happen? Why does our own mind seem to sabotage our success and happiness? The answer lies deep within the architecture of human psychology. This isn't just about feeling better. No, it's about understanding the hidden architect of our deepest insecurities, so that we can finally stop fighting ourselves and become whole. Before we venture into the depths of the shadow, let's first get intimately acquainted with the problem itself. Self-doubt? It's a universal human experience. It's an affliction that knows no boundaries of age, gender, or success. It's that sinking feeling in your stomach, the whisper that says, "You're not ready," just as you're about to take a career-defining risk. It's the wave of anxiety that crashes over you immediately following a success, making you feel as though you just got lucky, and real failure is just around the corner. This feeling, it's more than just humility. It's a paralyzing force. It's the silent killer of brilliant ideas, the reason masterpieces are left unfinished, and why our most creative and authentic work sometimes never even leaves the confines of a dusty drawer. When self-doubt takes hold, it's like looking at the world through a distorted lens. We start to see our lives through a relentlessly critical filter, where our flaws are magnified and our strengths are dismissed as flukes. In the short term, avoiding challenges, staying in the background, and playing small might feel safe. It's a way of protecting ourselves from potential failure or criticism. But this safety is an illusion. Over time, this pattern of avoidance doesn't just fail to solve the problem. It deepens the underlying fear. It creates a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle where, by believing we're not capable, we stop trying. By stopping trying, we never gain the experience that builds genuine confidence. And by never gaining that experience, we never discover what we could have become, thus proving the original doubt correct. Take a moment to reflect on your own experiences. Has self-doubt ever held you back? Perhaps you stayed silent in a crucial meeting, convinced your idea wasn't worth sharing, only to hear someone else voice the same thought to great acclaim. Or maybe you've looked at your hard-won achievements, a degree, a promotion, a successful project, and instead of pride, you felt a sense of dread, an unnerving fear of being found out. This is the classic experience of what psychologists Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Imes first identified as imposter syndrome. It's the internal feeling that at any moment, the curtain will be pulled back, revealing the real, unqualified you to a shocked and disappointed audience. This isn't a personal failing or a sign of weakness. It's a deeply ingrained psychological pattern that often begins in our earliest years, shaped by our environment and relationships. But what if this internal critic, this voice of the imposter, isn't just a random collection of negative thoughts? To truly understand its power, we must turn to the work of Carl Jung and his profound concept of the shadow. To understand why self-doubt has such a powerful and seemingly unshakable grip on us, we need to introduce one of the most profound concepts in psychology, the shadow self. Coined by Carl Jung, the shadow represents all the parts of ourselves that we have repressed, disowned, or refused to acknowledge. It is the dark side of our personality, not because it is inherently evil, but because it is hidden from the light of our conscious awareness. Think of your personality as a house. The living room, the kitchen, the spaces you meticulously clean and decorate for guests. These represent your conscious personality. Jung called this the persona, from the Greek word for an actor's mask. The persona is the curated version of yourself you present to the world to be accepted and liked. It's the good employee, the caring friend, the strong leader. But what about the locked basements, the cluttered attics, and the forgotten closets? This is the realm of the shadow. It contains all the traits, impulses, and desires that we learned from a very early age were unacceptable. As we grow up, we're conditioned by our parents, teachers, and peers. We quickly learn which parts of our personality will be met with approval and love, and which will lead to punishment, shame, or rejection. Anger, selfishness, vulnerability, envy, raw ambition, intense desire. If these traits weren't welcomed or were deemed bad, we learn to push them down into the unconscious, to maintain our place in the social order. It's crucial to understand, though, that the shadow isn't inherently evil or purely negative. Jung described it as simply the thing a person has no wish to be. This includes not only socially negative qualities, like greed, aggression, and laziness, but also, surprisingly, positive ones. That's often referred to as the golden shadow. Maybe your unbridled creativity and imagination were dismissed as a childish waste of time, so you buried that part of yourself to become more practical. Or perhaps your natural assertiveness was labeled as bossy or difficult, so you learned to become passive and agreeable instead. And what if your deep sensitivity was seen as a weakness, so you built a wall of stoicism around your heart? These unclaimed strengths, these powerful positive potentials, they also reside in the hidden realm of the shadow, just waiting to be rediscovered. So, how does this hidden part of us operate? Well, since it's unconscious, it influences our lives from behind the scenes, often through a psychological process called projection. This is when, unconsciously, we actually see our own unacknowledged traits in other people. Have you ever been intensely, disproportionately irritated by someone's arrogance? Or, found yourself being deeply judgmental of another's laziness or perceived incompetence? Jung would suggest that this intense emotional reaction is a powerful clue. It often points directly to a quality you've disowned in yourself, the things that bother us most in others. They're often the whispers of our own shadow that we just refuse to confront. By criticizing it out there, we avoid the discomfort of acknowledging it in here. But the shadow doesn't just project outward. It also turns its critical gaze inward. And this is where we return to the crippling power of self-doubt. The shadow is a collection of everything we believe is unacceptable and unlovable about ourselves. This disowned self constantly whispers in our ear, providing the ammunition for our internal critic. It's the true source of that persistent, nagging voice that tells you, you're not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. Understanding this is the first and most critical step to a profound realization. Your self-doubt isn't an objective truth. It's not a rational assessment of your capabilities. It's a message from a hidden, wounded, and long-neglected part of yourself. Now that we understand what the shadow is, we can explore how, exactly, this hidden part of our psyche manufactures and wields self-doubt. The shadow's primary, though unconscious, function is to protect you from experiencing more shame and rejection. It operates from a place of past hurts. Those moments in childhood, or later in life, when showing your authentic self, with all its messy, inconvenient, or powerful traits, was met with disapproval, ridicule, or punishment. The logic of the shadow is simple, if a little twisted. If taking an emotional or creative risk once led to pain, then the safest course of action is to ensure you never take that risk again. And self-doubt is the perfect psychological mechanism for this. When we're in the grip of self-doubt, we hesitate, we procrastinate, we overthink, and we avoid the very challenges and opportunities that could lead to our greatest growth. This is exactly what the shadow, in its misguided attempt to protect us, it wants. Growth, you see, It requires vulnerability. It requires risking failure, criticism, and the unknown, all things the shadow perceives as existential threats. It'd rather keep you in a familiar, limited, but safe state than risk the exposure that comes with striving for more. And that's the essence of self-sabotage, right? It's a hidden part of you that's actively working against your conscious goals. Not out of malice, though. No, it's out of a deeply ingrained, fear-based attempt at protection. Consider the talented artist who dreams of showing her work, but never submits it to a gallery. Consciously, she wants recognition, but her shadow, perhaps holding a deep-seated belief that her creativity is frivolous or that she isn't a real artist, is absolutely terrified of the judgment that an exhibition would bring. The shadow, it whispers, if you show your work and they hate it, the shame will be unbearable. It's safer to keep it hidden, where no one can hurt you. Or, think of the employee who wants a promotion, but consistently undermines their own chances. They might miss deadlines, deflect compliments by saying it was just luck, or avoid speaking up in meetings. This isn't happening because they're incompetent. No, it's happening because their shadow, holding deep beliefs of inadequacy, is petrified of the visibility and higher expectations that come with success. And it whispers, if I succeed, the pressure will be immense, and my eventual failure will be even more devastating. It's safer to stay right where I am. This internal experience of being a fraud is one of the shadow's most common and debilitating patterns. According to researcher Dr. Valerie Jung, imposter syndrome often shows up as several distinct archetypes. See if any of these sound familiar. First, there's the perfectionist. They set impossibly high standards for themselves. Their focus is on how work is done. If they don't achieve a flawless result 100% of the time, they feel like a complete failure and proof that they're a fraud. Next, we have the expert. They feel they must know everything about a subject before they can even start. They measure their competence by what and how much they know. They fear being exposed as not knowing enough, and will endlessly seek out more training or certifications before taking the next step. Moving on, we come to the soloist. This person believes that asking for help is a sign of weakness and incompetence. They feel that any work must be accomplished alone, and, if they need assistance, their success isn't truly their own. Another one is the natural genius. They judge success based on ease and speed. If they have to struggle or work hard at something, they feel shame and believe it means they aren't truly talented. They were often praised for being smart as a child, and now feel like a fraud if things don't come easily. And then, we have the superhuman. This person feels they should be able to masterfully juggle every role in their life. Perfect employee, perfect parent, perfect friend, perfect partner. They push themselves to work harder than those around them, and feel immense stress when they inevitably can't handle it all, seeing it as a sign they aren't good enough. These aren't personality flaws. They're actually sophisticated defense mechanisms, born from the shadow's fear. Perfectionism, for instance, isn't really a pursuit of excellence. It's a shield against criticism. The shadow's greatest, most insidious trick. It's convincing you that its fearful, critical voice is your voice, that its anxieties are a rational assessment of reality. But they are not. They're echoes of the past, reverberating in the present, and it's entirely possible to learn a new way of listening. So, if self-doubt is a weapon wielded by the shadow, what can we do? We can't simply will it away or suppress it further. That would be like trying to fight a shadow with more darkness. The path forward lies in a courageous process, known as shadow work. This isn't about destroying or exorcising the darker parts of yourself. It's about integration. It's about bringing the unconscious into the light of awareness, so you can integrate these hidden parts into a more complete, authentic, and powerful self. And here are 4 practical ways to begin this transformative process. First, acknowledge the doubter, without identifying with it. The next time that critical voice arises, instead of thinking, "I'm not good enough," try to reframe it with mindful distance. I am having the thought that I'm not good enough. This simple shift in language creates a crucial space between you, the observer, and the thought, the mental event. That critical voice is a part of you, but it's not the entirety of you. Try keeping a journal specifically for these self-doubting thoughts. Note the situations that trigger them, the exact words they use, and the feelings they evoke. This act of dispassionate observation is the first step toward disarming the voice. You're shifting from being a prisoner of the thought to being a curious witness of it. Second, learn to decode the shadow's projections. You see, as we've discussed, the things that trigger a strong, disproportionate emotional reaction in you, whether positive or negative, are truly breadcrumbs leading back to your own disowned self. So, think of someone who intensely irritates you. What specific quality about them really pushes your buttons? Is it their perceived arrogance, their laziness, or maybe their neediness? Now, ask yourself with radical honesty, is there any part of me, however small and well hidden, that is like that? And in what context have I behaved this way, or even feared that I might? Conversely, think of someone you deeply admire, or perhaps even feel envious of. What qualities do you look up to in them? Is it their confidence, their creativity, or their freedom? That strong admiration, is often a signal from your golden shadow, pointing directly toward a brilliant potential you've suppressed in yourself. The light you see in others is a reflection of a light you haven't yet owned in yourself. Third, engage in a dialogue with your shadow. Now, this might sound strange, but it's a powerful Jungian technique called active imagination. It's a way of making the unconscious conscious by giving it a voice. Through journaling, you can personify your self-doubt and ask this part of you direct questions. For example, what are you afraid of? What are you trying to protect me from? Or, what pain are you holding on to? Then, allow yourself to write whatever comes to mind without judgment or censorship. You might be surprised to find that beneath that harsh critic is actually a scared inner child, a part of you that's simply terrified of being hurt again. The goal isn't to obey the shadow, but to understand its motives with compassion. And when you do this, you transform an inner enemy into an inner ally. Finally, and most importantly, practice self-compassion. Self-doubt is rooted in a lifetime of self-criticism. The direct antidote is self-compassion. Researcher Dr. Kristen Neff identifies 3 core components to this practice. The first is self-kindness, and that means when you make a mistake or feel inadequate, speaking to yourself just as you would a dear friend in the same situation. With warmth and understanding rather than judgment. The second is common humanity. This is about remembering that suffering, failure, and imperfection, they're truly part of the shared human experience. You are not alone in your struggle. And the third is mindfulness. This involves observing your painful thoughts and feelings without being completely consumed by them. You're not trying to create an inflated ego here. Instead, you're aiming for a more balanced, realistic, and caring view of yourself. The shadow thrives on all-or-nothing black and white thinking. The truth is, you are a complex, multifaceted human being, with both profound strengths and inevitable weaknesses. This work isn't a quick fix. It's a lifelong practice. But each time you face your shadow with curiosity instead of fear, you reclaim a lost piece of your soul and integrate its energy into your conscious life. This journey into the shadow is one of the most profound and rewarding you can ever take. It's the path to true self-knowledge and authenticity. If you want to explore more insights from psychology and the great thinkers of history, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're just getting started on this journey together. And now, I'd like to hear from you. In the comments below, share one aspect of your golden shadow. That's a positive quality you deeply admire in others, and that you'd like to reclaim for yourself. If this idea of the shadow resonates with you, let's start a conversation and learn from each other. The voice of self-doubt, in the end, isn't an accurate reflection of your true worth. It's not a prophet foretelling your inevitable failure. It's the echo of a hidden, wounded part of you. The shadow, born from social conditioning and the pain of rejection, creates this doubt in a misguided, desperate attempt to protect you from repeating past hurts. For years, perhaps for your entire life, you may have believed its limitations were your own. But they're not. They're the walls of a psychological prison you were conditioned to build, but you also hold the key to unlock. By turning toward the shadow with courage, by listening to its fears with compassion, and by consciously integrating its forgotten energies, you can perform a kind of psychological alchemy. You transform its greatest defense mechanism into your most powerful tool. Self-doubt stops being a barrier and becomes a signal, a compass pointing you directly toward the areas where your greatest growth lies. Embracing your shadow isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's the sacred act of accepting every part of yourself, the light and the dark, the strong and the vulnerable, the brilliant and the flawed. And in this radical acceptance, you won't find weakness. You'll find an unshakable, authentic strength. You'll find the freedom to stop performing and start living. And finally, unlock the vast, untapped potential that's been waiting for you in the shadows all along.